Good morning and welcome to the Public Service Commission of South Carolina. We are here this morning. It is Tuesday, September 5th at 10 a.m. and we are in a hearing in docket number 2023-189-E. Let's take a roll call of commissioners. With us virtually, we have Commissioner Irvin. Present in the hearing room, we have Commissioner Justin Williams, Vice Chair Powers, Commissioner Thomas, Commissioner Carolee Williams, Commissioner Caston, and Chair Belser. Let me recognize our staff counsel, Mr. Scott Winburn, to read the docket.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, commissioners and parties. We're here today for the proceeding in docket number 2023-189-E regarding the petition of the South Carolina Public Service Authority, Santee Cooper, for approval of the acquisition of a major utility facility, Cherokee County Cogeneration Partners, LLC in Gaffney, South Carolina. The proceeding has been scheduled for today, September 5th, 2023 at 10 a.m. All parties participating in this matter are available and the docket is in order. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Winburn. Let's take appearances from the parties. Who's representing the South Carolina Public Service Authority, also known as Santee Cooper?
Good morning, Sheriff Belser, Commissioners. Stephen Pelcher for Santee Cooper, and joining me at the table here as co-counsel is Megan Driggers to my left, Ashley Cooper, and Alex Brazil.
Thank you, Mr. Pelcher, and welcome. Central Electric Power Cooperative Incorporated.
Hi, Chris McDonald for Central Electric.
Good morning, Mr. McDonald.
Good morning.
Ready Ice, LLC.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is John Boyd, and I'm here on behalf of Ready Ice, LLC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. And Office of Regulatory Staff.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Chad Torrey and Nicole Given on behalf of ORS.
Thank you, Mr. Torrey. Before we begin with witnesses, are there any preliminary matters which we need to discuss?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Torrey?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Powers, and Commissioners. On Friday afternoon, Mr. Cooper, on behalf of Santee Cooper, filed a stipulation in this docket between Santee Cooper, ORS, and Intervenor Central Electric Power Cooperative for the Commission's considerations. Intervenor Ready Ice is not a signatory to the proposed stipulation, but I understand from Mr. Boyd, who is present, that Ready Ice does not oppose the stipulation. I did not know if the commissioners had an opportunity to review the terms of the stipulation prior to the start of this morning's proceeding. If so, the parties are ready to proceed with the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Torrey. Are you offering the stipulation, or is Mr. Cooper or Mr. Pelcher going to do that?
ORS is going to offer it and be happy to do so now.
Any objection to taking it up now?
No objections.
Mr. Torrey, would you proceed, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The case before you concerns the request by Santee Cooper for Commission approval to acquire the Cherokee County Cogeneration Plant, a 98 megawatt natural gas-fired combined cycle cogeneration facility located in Gaffney, South Carolina. The Santee Cooper request is made pursuant to South Carolina Code annotated section 5833-185, which was part of Act 90 enacted in 2021 and effective January 1st, 2022. ORS evaluated the request in the face of the requirements of section 5833-185. As you will hear from ORS witness Salter, ORS determined that the assumptions and analysis performed by Santee Cooper were reasonable and in compliance with the requirements of 5833-185. ORS witness Salter recommended that Santee Cooper follow certain reporting requirements upon Commission approval of the request. The stipulation memorializes Santee Cooper's commitment to those reporting requirements. At this time, Madam Chair, ORS proposes to mark the proposed stipulation for identification and move it into the record as the next hearing exhibit.
We will mark the stipulation as hearing exhibit number 1. Is there any objection to receiving the stipulation into evidence? None from the signatory parties.
No objection.
No objection, Mr. Boyd, on behalf of Ready Ice. The stipulation has been marked as hearing exhibit number 1 and will be admitted into the evidence of this case.
Madam Chair, thank you for allowing me to introduce the stipulation.
Thank you, Mr. Torrey. Any further preliminary matters? If not, Mr. Pelcher? Ms. Brazil? Just my normal instructions, counsel. The most important thing is that you speak into a microphone. Microphones are at the table. I know it kind of goes against our grain to stay seated, but if you're speaking from your desk, it's probably easier to stay seated, so you talk into the microphone. There are microphones at the podium on either side. If you can get to one and want to stand, you may certainly do so, but we just need you to be heard in the room and virtually. Thank you. Ms. Brazil.
Chair Belzer, at this time, Santee Cooper calls a panel of 3 witnesses. Those witnesses are Marty Watson, Sean Ames, and Adam Taylor.
Thank you. If they'd come forward. You okay?
I'm going to swear you in individually. Mr. Ames, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Mr. Watson, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. And Mr. Taylor, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
And Chair Belzer, I'm going to address Marty, then Sean, then Adam as we proceed, if that's okay.
You go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Watson, please state your name for the record.
John Martine Watson. I go by Marty.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Santee Cooper.
And Mr. Watson, did the parties reach an agreement in this docket regarding Santee Cooper's request for approval to acquire a major utility facility?
Yes, Santee Cooper, ORS, and Central reached an agreement on September 1st, 2023. The stipulation was filed in this docket on September 1st.
Does Santee Cooper support the stipulation and its terms and conditions?
Yes.
Does Santee Cooper believe the stipulation is in the public interest and best interest of its customers?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 20 pages that was previously filed with the Commission on June 9th, 2023 in this docket?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No, ma'am.
If I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, it would.
Chair Belzer, at this time I move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Watson be admitted into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Mr. Watson's pre-filed direct testimony will be received into the record as if given from the stand.
Thank you. Mr. Watson, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
I have.
Would you please deliver that summary at this time?
Sure. Good morning, Chair Belzer and members of the Commission. In this proceeding, I submitted direct testimony. In my direct testimony, I first provided an overview of Santee Cooper, also explained Santee Cooper's relationship with Central, the proposed transaction in the Cherokee facility, which is a 98 megawatt combined cycle cogeneration facility owned by Cherokee County Cogeneration Partners, LLC. Also explained Santee Cooper's capacity need that supports the acquisition of the Cherokee facility, and lastly, introduce other witnesses testifying in this document. Santee Cooper is a state agency in South Carolina's state-owned electric and water utility. Santee Cooper is the state's largest power provider, supplying power for approximately 2 million South Carolinians, either directly at retail or indirectly through a wholesale power supply contract with Central, some of whom live in the most rural parts of the state. Central is Santee Cooper's largest wholesale customer, and the terms of Central's wholesale purchase of power from Santee Cooper are governed by the Power System Coordination and Integration Agreement, referred to by Santee Cooper and Central as the Coordination Agreement. Central and Santee Cooper have worked through the due diligence for the proposed transaction together, including sharing of maintenance plans and economic analyses. Both Central and Santee Cooper support Santee Cooper's acquisition of the Cherokee facility. The proposed transaction was formally presented to the Joint Planning Committee of the Coordination Agreement on April 20th, 2023. Santee Cooper's board approved the proposed transaction on April 21st, 2023, and Central's board authorized the proposed transaction as a shared resource on May 10th, 2023. The proposed transaction involves the purchase of Cherokee County Cogeneration Partners, LLC, as an entity purchase for a negotiated price of $17 million. Santee Cooper has purchased power from the Cherokee facility under various PPAs, including in January and February of 2022, and then again from July of 2022 through February of 2023. The Cherokee facility has performed very well under the various PPAs, including during Winter Storm Elliott. But ownership of the facility provides additional flexibility with respect to operating the facility that a PPA simply cannot provide, such as the full authority to schedule maintenance to ensure reliability and the ability to dispatch the facility to economically follow load swings throughout the day during normal operating conditions. Santee Cooper and Central worked together to develop load projections for the near term. The studies indicated a capacity need of 124 megawatts beginning winter of 2023-2024, potentially growing to in excess of 1,300 megawatts by the winter of 2028. Santee Cooper conducted an analysis comparing various generation options, and I believe the Cherokee facility is a valuable resource to ensure reliable capacity on the Santee Cooper system. Santee Cooper initially investigated the value of the Cherokee facility by comparing the facility against other market purchases of combined cycle facilities that could be readily identified. This analysis demonstrated that a purchase price of approximately $20 million was reasonable for a facility the size, the vintage of the Cherokee facility. Santee Cooper respectfully asked the Commission to approve its purchase of the Cherokee facility for the $17 million purchase price. This concludes the summary of my direct testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. I'll address Mr. Ames now. Chair Belzer, we're going to call Sean Ames. Mr. Ames, please state your name for the record.
Sean Norwood Ames.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Santee Cooper as manager of fuel forecast.
Have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 8 pages that was previously filed with the Commission on June 9, 2023 in this docket?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No, ma'am.
If I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Chair Belzer, at this time, I move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Ames be admitted into the record as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Ames will be entered into the record as if provided from the stand.
Thank you. Mr. Ames, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes.
Would you please deliver it at this time?
Sure. Good morning, Chair Belzer and members of the Commission. In this proceeding, I submitted direct testimony. In my direct testimony, I discussed the analysis that helped guide Santee Cooper's decision to purchase the Cherokee facility. The acquisition of the Cherokee facility is driven by a reliability need. As I explained in my direct testimony, there is a projected capacity deficiency starting in the winter of 2024 of at least 124 megawatts. The acquisition of the Cherokee facility helps Santee Cooper ensure it has sufficient capacity to meet demand and reliably serve its customers. A preliminary analysis was conducted in mid-2022 to determine what resources may be available to meet the identified capacity needs for the system in the time period identified. The Cherokee facility has been part of short-term PPA Santee Cooper had in the past. The owner of the Cherokee facility informed Santee Cooper in early 2022 that the facility was available for sale, and Santee Cooper began its due diligence as part of the larger near-term resource review. As the review evolved, estimates for maintenance, operation, gas reservation, and transmission costs were developed based upon the due diligence process. Ultimately, a purchase price of $17 million was agreed upon. Santee Cooper also identified other potential solutions to fulfill its capacity and energy need. It was determined that other than the Cherokee facility, the only other potential options to fill the capacity need now would be purchase power options because of the time needed to construct capacity generating facilities. Some of the solutions studied beyond purchase power options included making minor upgrades to existing system units, purchasing batteries as they became available, possibly extending an existing purchase contract, and purchasing or leasing aeroderivative units. Santee Cooper performed a thorough analysis of the Cherokee facility cost compared to other options as described in more detail in my direct testimony. At a high level, the Cherokee facility costs compare very favorably to any new build options, including battery purchases. The Cherokee facility costs are also comparable to the purchase power cost estimates for a product from a similar region. Additionally, Santee Cooper analyzed the cost to secure firm gas transportation capacity and firm transmission rates on the Duke Energy Carolina system. Based on that evaluation, Santee Cooper concluded it will have firm rates gas transportation and transmission rates to deliver energy from the facility to the Santee Cooper border. Finally, I believe that the purchase price, together with the ongoing transmission, fuel supply, and operation and maintenance costs, make the facility cost competitive with other options that have been studied. This concludes the summary of my direct testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Ames. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Taylor, will you please state your name for the record?
Adam Lee Taylor.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
Santee Cooper, and I'm the Senior Manager of System Operations.
Have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 8 pages that was previously filed with the Commission on June 9th, 2023 in this docket?
I have.
Do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No.
If I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Chair Belzer, at this time I move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Taylor be admitted into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Mr. Taylor's pre-filed direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given from the stand.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
I have.
Would you please deliver it at this time?
Good morning, Chair Belzer and members of the Commission. In this proceeding,
Mr. Taylor, I'm going to ask if you could pull that microphone a little bit closer.
Sure. How's that?
That's good.
Better?
Thank you. I'm sorry you have to lean over.
All right. In this proceeding, I have submitted direct testimony. In my direct testimony, I provide my perspective of Santee Cooper's system control, which is responsible for daily generation dispatch, interchange, real-time balancing, and reliability. I also address the need for additional near-term capacity on the Santee Cooper system and the importance of the Cherokee facility during Winter Storm Elliott. Santee Cooper's System Control Department is responsible for the NERC Balancing Authority, transmission operator, and generator operator reliability functions for Santee Cooper. This includes daily generation dispatch, interchange, real-time balancing, and transmission reliability. From a system control perspective, Santee Cooper has a current need for additional capacity. Additional dispatchable native generating capacity is required to address and help alleviate the capacity deficiency that Santee Cooper currently has and expects to grow in the future. Acquiring an existing facility that Santee Cooper could dispatch is important and will enhance Santee Cooper's ability to balance generation and load as it changes throughout the day. The Cherokee facility reliably supplied power to Santee Cooper during Winter Storm Elliott and was particularly important when market purchases were either cut or unavailable. If Santee Cooper did not have the Cherokee facility as a resource during Winter Storm Elliott, Santee Cooper would have faced a more significant resource shortfall than was the case on December 24th, 2022. Additionally, there are efficiencies and benefits to Santee Cooper as it relates to the operation and maintenance of the Cherokee facility. Santee Cooper will be able to coordinate operation and maintenance schedules with the Rainy Generating Station. In addition to the coordination of maintenance and parts, the expertise of the personnel at each site provides a valuable resource that can be shared between the two facilities. Lastly, from an operations perspective, we need this resource, and I respectfully ask the Commission to approve the acquisition of the Cherokee facility as soon as possible. This concludes the summary of my direct testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Chair Belzer, the witnesses are available for questioning.
Thank you, Ms. Brazil. I think under the stipulation, all stipulating parties have agreed to forego cross-examination. Is that correct? Okay. See heads nodding.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Mr. Boyd, any questions for these witnesses?
No questions here.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions for the panel?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Thomas?
thank you. Appreciate you all being here today. I just have a few questions, and I'm not going to direct them to anyone in particular. I'll let you all fight over them as you please. So is an employee, a person always on site at this facility? Is it manned around the clock?
So the current operation of the facility is carried out through a contract with Ethos Energy, and they do have employees on site around the clock during operation.
Okay. And are these people that have been there a long time?
Yes, sir. The current, I do not know their exact terms of employment, but when we went up there and looked at the site, that these are long-term employees that know the operation of the unit.
Okay. So then I assume it does not have any remote startup type equipment. It just stays pretty much running all the time.
It operates more of as a peaking type unit, and it's about a 4-hour startup period.
Okay.
4 hours to full power.
Okay. But it is not started remotely.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
All right. So how about the maintenance? I mean, it's like, what, 25 years old? Have you all reviewed the near-term and long-term maintenance records?
Yes, sir. As part of the due diligence, I would say a couple of things. Number one, having it under a purchase power agreement and actually operating. We got to see how the unit performed firsthand during really Winter Storm Elliott, specifically a high stress time with very harsh conditions, and the unit operated well. We've also had our experts in Central Electric, had some experts as well, dig through all of the maintenance records on the facility to make sure we understood the condition of the facility. We also did some work. We did some inspection work with GE, who is the OEM of the facility. It's a GE unit. Have gone through and done some technical analysis, so we feel pretty comfortable. We know what maintenance has been done on the unit. We know the current condition of the unit, and we have a good feel for what the costs are going to be to get the unit to where we need it to run reliably for the future.
Okay. So then you do have some upgrade type plans in the near term, is that correct?
Yes, sir. For any natural gas combined cycle facility, I think there's really two things I would like to talk about. One is the routine type maintenance. So anytime you operate a combined cycle facility, there are wear parts. There are things in the hot gas path that need to be replaced on a routine basis. So that's driven really by General Electric's guidance on how often you do that. So we have we know where they are in that process. We know when those outages need to occur to replace those, I'll call them a wear part that routinely need to be replaced. And then we also know there's some work that needs to be done. We want to upgrade the controls at the facility, and there is one issue with a steam turbine generator that we are aware of that we will need to address in the near future.
Okay. So you said it performed well during Winter Storm Elliott. Is that pretty much without incident? Is that what you mean by that, or anything else that you can say in particular?
That facility ran for that week or so, 3, 4, 5 days without interruption.
and I know it's real close to the Transco line. I assume that's a big plus to have it right there at the Transco line.
I'll take it. Yes, sir. So it's got about 1.5 miles lateral to Transco. That's a very important piece of the Cherokee facility. To be near the Transco transmission pipeline is a big deal for a natural gas plant, especially in South Carolina, where that pipeline really only clips our northwest portion of the state.
Okay. So who would be some of your nearby customers? I assume the electric co-ops or what?
So the plan would be to integrate this into our system, so it's on the Duke Carolinas transmission system. So we would have pathways to bring the energy down to our system, but we also do serve folks like PMPA, Piedmont Municipal Power Agency, that has load on the Duke Carolina system. We serve the city of Seneca, that is also on the Duke Carolina system. So there are places where we could deliver it directly to our customers, but the plan would be we have firm transmission rights to move the energy from Duke to our system.
Okay. And through Central, then, do you serve, like, let's just say, York Electric Co-op or some of the nearby? Maybe you don't know that.
So our agreement with Central is to supply power generally for Central serves 20 electric co-ops. There are, I believe, 5 that are on the Duke Carolina system. There are 15 that are on our system. Essentially, we supply all capacity and energy for the 15 co-ops on our system, but Central takes that energy and bills their customers beyond our control. We don't see into how they bill them, but so our responsibility is the 15 co-ops on our system.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Justin Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Question for the panel. Whoever wants to answer the question, I welcome the answer. Do you feel like you got the best deal for your ratepayers by way of price?
Yes, sir. I feel very comfortable in that the arm's length negotiation that took place resulted in a purchase price that is prudent and is beneficial to our customers.
All right. No further questions, Madam Chair. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Powers.
Thank you. And I guess just following up on that, what effect will this purchase have on the ratepayers as far as any immediate bills or changes in the amount of their bills?
So I do not have the analysis in front of me that shows the impact on ratepayers, but from a high level, a $17 million capital purchase as well as the projected O&M budget for this facility will have minimal impact on our customers. $17 million in a $1.6 or $7 billion budget really is not a material impact on our ratepayers. I would offer that having another facility, another gas facility, actually offers some benefit to our customers from a risk mitigation standpoint. Number one, we need the capacity. That's been demonstrated through studies. Number two, if we diversify our fuel just a little bit by adding a little more natural gas to our system, that's actually a risk mitigation to potential fuel prices to our customers. So in times where we're not at peak capacity, we have one more option to dispatch our system more economically. So it could benefit our customers in the long run.
When you use the word minimal might mean one thing to somebody like me, and then somebody with a lot of money, minimal might be minimal. You can't put any sort of number to this.
I'm hesitant to make a guess under oath. I would put it in perspective this way.
More than, less than?
So the O&M for this facility, Sean, do you remember the O&M for this facility?
I believe all in, we were looking at $180 per kWh. That was all in, for the time period we were studying. That was approximately.
And about $6 to $10 million a year in annual budget. Is that correct? So please excuse me, I'm doing math in my head under oath, so I'm gonna do it the best I can. So if I take the high end of that and call it $10 million, and I believe it's somewhere around $1.7 billion, that includes fuel, less than 1% for sure, probably less than 0.5% is my top of head math, but we can get you that information. That might be the safer answer for me to give you, is that we will go back and get you that answer. I don't have it in front of me.
Madam Chair, may I request that as a late file exhibit?
Any objection to a late filed exhibit? Hearing none, we will hold hearing exhibit number 2 for late filed exhibit for this information from Mr. Watson.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioners? Commissioner Thomas?
Just another question. So would it be possible to expand the size of the facility? Is there extra room? Can you get additional supply from Transco? Any thoughts along those lines?
Yes, sir. There is some additional real estate at the location that could offer an opportunity to increase capacity. I think you've hit on one of the things that you would have to work through. One is getting the gas there from Transco to run an additional generating facility. 2 would be to make sure we have the electric transmission capability to move it off of it. But the short answer is yes, there's some real estate there that you could do some expansion. Obviously, that expansion would be captured in any future IRP work and would appear before the commission before we proceeded.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners? Commissioner Carolee Commissioner Irvin, I'd call on Commissioner Carolee Williams. I'll come to you next, please.
Thank you for being here. And it's good to learn about your system and the way you approach it. And this is one of just a few beginnings for us on that. So I thank you from that perspective. So my first question has a little bit to do with just getting to know your system. And you talked about the connection and the benefits associated with the Rainey facility. And y'all's business is not my background. So 2 naive questions. Is it proximity that helps you with Rainey, or is it the same kind of generation facility?
In my mind, it's the type of generating facility it is. So if you think about our Rainey station, it's a much larger facility, same type of GE technology. I think Rainey's large unit is what GE calls a 7FA. The Cherokee facility is a 6FA, so just a smaller unit. We have folks that are experts in natural gas generation that know how to work with GE, know how to maintain the unit. So that's the main benefit. There is some cross-pollination with staff at one facility and the other to get best ideas on the table. There is some proximity from a geography standpoint that allows site leadership to watch over both facilities, so there's some of that goes on as well.
Thank you. And my last question actually comes from Mr. Salter's testimony, and it what I thought I'd do is just read it without the confidential numbers in it, but although if you can turn to it, that will save me from reading it. It is page 8 of 14. And it really has to do with the all-in levelized cost, the percentage. In one case, it's a percentage decrease, the average purchase power cost per kilowatt year based on an indicative pricing received through the 2023 RFP. And then what I want to ask about is the percentages are just very different. One is less, and one is that talks about the levelized capacity cost for a Cherokee facility to be higher than the average purchase cost purchase power cost per kilowatt hour. Am I tracking that as two different kinds of pieces of information, two different indicators? And I'm sure there's a simple, if that's accurate, that it does show two different kinds of information, one positive, one negative. What's the reality about it? Does that make any sense?
So just where I'm following along, Commissioner Williams. So page 8 of 14. I believe we have the redacted numbers, but could you repeat, please, which section you're looking at?
Sure. Just under the chart.
Yes, ma'am.
The next two sentences.
Do you have the unredacted?
I do not.
You want?
And it's really then the first sentence, to me, it looks like it talks about the levelized cost being less than the purchase cost. And the other one talks about it being higher. And I'm just trying to understand, you know, one of them's from a 2023 IRP. It may be a more current piece of information,
right.
Suggesting that the levelized cost.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm.
Mr. Ames.
Yes.
If the highlighted portions in that are what's the confidential information, and she's trying to avoid saying those out loud.
I understand. I'm with you.
And if it's something that,
No,
like I've said before, my background doesn't.
I understand.
Okay.
I'll kick it off. And so one is talking about an all-in levelized cost, which is bringing into play the cost of the energy. So it's bringing in the cost of the gas and comparing it to other options. So, and the other one, so it includes some variable cost in there that come with operating the unit. The other one, the second
okay. No, that answered my question.
Okay.
Yep.
No, keep going. But you were talking about the first one.
Right.
And
So
now you're going to talk about the second
one. The levelized fixed and capacity cost is just that. It's the fixed cost of the unit that are going to be there regardless of if you run it or not.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate the background, and you're working in this environment to help me understand.
Ma'am. Sure.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Irvin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning and welcome. My question goes to the routine maintenance outages. How often is the unit have to be shut down for maintenance, if you know?
It's based on the run hours of the unit, so it's not necessarily a calendar hour, but essentially if with the hardware that's in that unit right now, if it ran around the clock, you're taking it down about once a year to do routine maintenance on it from a planned outage perspective. So obviously, if you only dispatch that unit 50% of the time, then you would be taking it down about every other year for routine planned maintenance.
And I would assume that you would take it down during a non-peak period, like maybe this the spring or the fall of the year, so that you don't lose that generation capacity for the winter peak and the summer peak. Would that be correct?
I think that's a fair statement. It would be coordinated with the maintenance outages on our other units, so it would roll into that same outage planning process.
If I can add, I would draw one distinction between owning a unit and getting capacity or energy out of a purchase power agreement. If you own the facility, then scheduling that maintenance is it's in your control. So you can do it at times that make sense in relation to other units. If you're just purchasing the output of the unit, you typically would not have that control of when the unit comes down. So it may not necessarily be at the best time for you if it's through a purchase power agreement.
And so that's another advantage to actually purchasing and owning the facility, right?
Yes, sir, from my perspective, and I believe Mr. Taylor would tell you the same from a system control perspective.
I would agree with that statement.
Thank you. Well, it appears that it's going to be a real asset to your generation portfolio, and I'm pleased to hear that you've reached an agreement on the terms. And thank you again for appearing and explaining all this to us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Caston?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I was going to ask if any engineering evaluation or anything like that had been done, but am I wrong in assuming that, I think when you said you met with the General Electric people, was that at the site? Was that basically your engineering analysis? Or?
So I would say there's multiple layers of the engineering analysis that went on. So we had, Santee Cooper had our experts from our Rainey facility go to the site, dig through the maintenance records, look at the facility, know what they're getting their hands on. Central Electric also had an expert come and do an assessment of the site and the maintenance records and the same thing. And their experts and our experts have, our engineering experts have discussed their findings and are in agreement on the condition of the facility and the work that may need to be done in the future. And then the next level would be the GE folks coming on site, doing things like robotic inspections and opening up the unit and looking at it in a more detailed fashion.
Well, relative to the General Electric, that particular phase, that has been done or has not been done?
That has been done.
Okay. So you didn't just decide to buy this blindly. You did your due diligence, you're saying?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Good. Relative to the CECPN, do you know if Cherokee had any special conditions or anything on their CECPN?
I am not aware of any special conditions.
And maybe it was in here and I just missed it, but is Santee Cooper a winter peaking facility, system or a summer peaking?
We're a winter peaking system.
And I understand certainly the need. Santee Cooper is looking to increase their reserves because of that winter. What was this a gradual thing, or did you wake up one day and realize, I mean, how did we get here?
So through some of the work that was going on through our IRP, there was a loss of load probability study that was conducted, which is basically looking at the reserves that you have to carry to have a 1 in 10 year event. And so through that study, that's what revealed the need to move from a 12% reserve margin in the winter to a 17% reserve margin for winter. So it's part of the IRP work.
I understand. Go ahead.
And I would also add that our system has grown as well. So when you layer in the reserve margin study that increased the needed reserves and you add in the load growth that's happened on our system, those things in combination have put us to where we need a little more capacity in the short term.
I understand. And please don't take this as though I'm being critical, because I'm not. And clearly your IRP identified that. But the growth doesn't occur that quickly overnight, and things just don't happen overnight. Is there anything that prevented Santee Cooper or from, I guess, your previous studies not kind of picking up on, hey, this is going up?
So nothing prevented us from doing studies. I would suggest that load growth can happen quickly when it's an industrial facility. And we've had some of that where hundreds of megawatts at a time can come on your system. But nothing prevented us from doing studies.
I agree with that. I mean, you can get a big industry. Usually you find out reasonably soon. Again, I'm not
It's fair.
trying to throw stones. Sounds like you guys are doing what you need to do.
Yes, sir.
And seeing how I know very little about Santee Cooper, as I was reading through the confidential testimony portion, it talks about Santee Cooper's analysis, the most feasible, immediate, and least cost option. This is on page 6 of 14, lines 10 through 13. 6 of 14, page 6, lines 10 through, you can say 13. Talks about most feasible, immediate, and least cost option was to return Winyah Unit 4 to service, which Santee Cooper brought back online for winter 2022-23. What was the issue with Winyah number 4 anyway? Why was it taken out of service?
It had been idled. There wasn't a particular mechanical issue. Some of it's being the least economical unit at the time. 5 years ago, I don't know that we needed the extra capacity, so it was a way to save cost.
So I could barely hear that last part.
It was a way to save on cost of maintaining that unit. That's why it was idled when we did not need the capacity.
Sort of mothballed.
That's correct.
But you still had it back there if you needed it.
That's right.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Wasn't there some agreement when all the legislation was going on regarding Santee Cooper that led to, what is this, Act 90? Wasn't there something about retiring Winyah?
Yes, ma'am. In what we call the reform plan that was submitted to the state.
Thank you. I couldn't remember what it was.
There was a study at that time to retire the Winyah unit, and part of that was Adam spoke to it. We actually, at that point in time, I believe the projections were that we didn't need Winyah 3 or Winyah 4 for capacity needs. And then the system load growth took place, but the original
and so
plan,
that's changed.
so the capacity needs on the system from a load perspective has changed as far as being able to idle Winyahs 3 and 4. There was a plan that had the retirement of the full Winyah facility, and that is still being contemplated through our IRP that will be before you.
All right, thank you. I just had a recollection of there's something
Yes,
about Winyah with
Yes,
the
ma'am.
reform plan. Thank you for the correct term. Sorry, Commissioner.
Oh, certainly. That's quite all right, because that really kind of answers what I was thinking relative to the planning again. I mean, with your IRP or any other planning you do, whether it's transmission or distribution or generation, I assume Santee Cooper looks at growth projections relative population, whatever it is, and do the best you can with that. Is that true?
Yes, sir. Through our planning studies, we will look at population growth. We will we will have economists help us in load forecasting, what's coming, and we do our best to project the needs that we will have in the future.
God doesn't always share that info, does he?
Unfortunately not.
And I assume as you look down the road and look at your planning, look at what you have, what you think you're going to need, and what's the most reliable, least cost way to go. Is that what Santee does?
Yes, sir. I believe it is our duty and our mission to serve our customers in the state in the most reliable, least cost manner possible. So some of that work has actually been done for this near-term study that was completed that fed into this unit. And so when we look at what our projected capacity needs, I believe the number is 124 in the winter of 23/24. It grows to about 400 megawatts by the winter of 28. But if you layer in some potential economic development activity that's out there, it's substantial. It's 1,300 megawatts of capacity. And so when we think about how do you fill that hole, how do you go about getting that capacity on your system, it's really an all of the above approach, right? There's no magic bullet that's going to solve that capacity need in a 1 or 2 year time frame. You can't build a brand new facility fast enough. There's not an existing facility out there that'll fill the whole need. It's probably not prudent to rely completely on purchase power, even if you could get it here. So we think of it really as the Cherokee facility is a piece of the puzzle that we're putting together to try to address that need that will likely include things like purchase power, which we've been out for a request for proposals for. It will likely include things like battery, and it will be dependent on what's economical and what's the magnitude of the capacity that we need. And this is just the first step in trying to address that need.
Sounds like good planning trumps catch up every time. Is that true?
I think the goal of any electric utility is to do the best planning you can possibly do so that you are proactive and not reactive.
It's a challenge.
Yes, sir.
Finally, relative to the Cherokee facility, are you aware of any like public or citizen complaints about the facility? You know, I don't know, noise, look, I mean, any feedback?
I am not aware of any public nuisance issues with this facility. I'm not aware of any.
It's because you didn't own it yet. No. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for being here this morning. I don't remember if this question was answered by Mr. Ames or Mr. Taylor, but in follow-up to Commissioner Thomas's question regarding employees at the plant, once Santee Cooper takes the plant, will there be employees present?
So the plan is that
or if Santee Cooper takes the plant.
The plan would be to maintain the contract relationship that's there now, because we believe it is essential that the operators that actually have operated that facility remain on site, and that's the cleanest way to do that. So we would use contract employees to begin with, and then we would work internally and work with Central to make sure we were doing what was in the best interest of our customers from a financial perspective.
Okay. And until recently, that plant was providing its output to Duke Energy, was it not?
That's correct.
Okay. And so it's really only become available for either PPA that y'all took over or signed or purchased within the last year or two. Is that correct?
I think January of 2022 is when the agreement
that's
with
kind of
Duke
my
expired.
recollection of some things. So this plant is it's less than 20 years old. Is that correct?
Actually, it's I believe it's in 1998.
Okay, I was thinking 95, but 98. So what's the remaining useful life, so to speak, of this plant? Do you have any idea? What, just no other constraints of emissions or trying to get rid of any kind of particular generation, but if everything else was okay, what's
I will answer that from an engineering perspective and not a financial perspective,
okay,
if I may.
That's fine.
So I think it's safe to assume a facility like Cherokee, it's about 25 years old right now. I think it's safe to assume it could operate 35 or 40 years.
More?
No.
Total.
In total, yeah.
Okay.
I would think the useful life, I believe in our IRP, It's about a 40-year lifespan, something like that, for a new combined cycle. It comes to the condition of the facility, how much maintenance does it actually take, but to have a combined cycle facility last a total of 35 or 40 years is not uncommon.
Okay. And it is a cogen facility, so it'll still provide the output needed for the ready ice, I think is the recipient of the.
Yes. So the cogen facility provides steam to the ready ice facility. While we have not finalized any agreement with them, that we are certainly aware that they are there. We've begun discussions with ready ice, and the intent would be that we find a mutually beneficial agreement for all of us.
And Mr. Watson, this is sort of a softball question, but you made the statement that the stipulation is in the public interest, in the best interest of Santee Cooper's customers. And I view that as a conclusion. So tell me what elements lead you to make that statement? What supports that conclusory statement?
Can I clarify the question? So you mentioned the stipulation. Are you talking about the transaction in general, or
the stipulation that was signed by all the parties and provided on Friday? And you certainly may reference your testimony or application or the stipulation itself.
Yeah, I'm just pulling out the stipulation to make sure I have it in front of me.
Well, and the reason I'll ask, let me just tell you why I'm asking the question. That's actually what the commission has to determine, that it's in the public interest and in the best interest. Well, actually, I think it says a more cost-effective means of serving the customers is what the statute requires. So that's what we have to find. I don't need you telling me that. I need you to give me the information that leads me to that conclusion. And I'll start you off. Reliability?
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to talk about it from the transaction in general and not specifically the stipulation, if I may. So I think there are several things that make this in the best interest of our customers. First of all, it's an existing in-state resource. So when we think about, you mentioned reliability, when you think about Winter Storm Elliott and what was going on not only in our state, but also in the Southeast. So if this facility was not purchased, there is a scenario where the capacity is not available to anybody in the Southeast. That if the bank was just going to walk away from that facility, then that's 100 megawatts of reliable generating capacity that is no longer available, not just to Santee Cooper, but to all of the Southeast. So when you think about reliability, we don't want to lose a resource that is there for us now, that is available to us. I believe it's in our best interest because it's an existing facility. The other piece of that would be that it's an existing facility that it's not brand new. And so we're trying to bridge to future capacity options, and this is a pretty good fit for doing that as well. When you think about a facility that has 10, 15 years of life left on it, that's a much different analysis than a 40-year analysis. I mentioned earlier about the fuel diversification and why that's important to us and how that helps mitigate some risk to our system. I believe that's a benefit. The proximity to the Transco pipeline is a benefit. The Duke transmission interface with Santee Cooper is strong. It gives us a reliable route to get us there. So I think when you look at it from both a reliability standpoint, total electric grid reliability in the Southeast, it checks the box. When you think about it from reliably serving our customers, Santee Cooper and Central's customers specifically, it checks the box. When you think about it from an economic standpoint, it also checks that box, and it's different than just relying on a purchase power option as well. Owning it is an important piece.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't recall somebody's testimony, but I think somebody's pre-file testimony indicated because of its proximity to the state line that there had been a possibility that the power could have been shipped out of state. Is that correct?
So when we were approached, there was a potential buyer was referenced, and I have no knowledge of exactly who that was. But that could be anybody. It could be an electric utility. I'm sure that the owners of this facility tried to reach an agreement with Duke Carolinas, I would assume. But there's also other folks that may be interested in buying this capacity, folks like a Bitcoin miner or somebody like that that would be using it for their personal needs and not for the reliably serving the electric system.
Well, thank you all for your testimony. That's all the questions I have. Commissioners, anything further for the panel? Commissioner Carolee Williams.
Thank you, Chair Belser. Can you hear me okay? Good, thank you. It's hard to know with wearing a mask. The conversation that you had with Commissioner Caston that related to load growth and capacity, is the unavailability of the additional VC summer plants not a part of that need?
So the VC summer 2 and 3. So the decision to, and I'm not an expert on VC summer 2 and 3, so I'm going to tread lightly here, but the decision to not proceed with those plants was done at the time that there was a less expensive pathway to supplying the capacity needs that were projected at the time. I would venture to say that if you did that analysis right now, based on what the projected cost to finish VC summer 2 and 3 were, there's still a better economic pathway to doing that.
When you say doing that, you mean finishing?
To filling the capacity
Okay,
need.
thank you.
But certainly if they were online, then it would be thousands of megawatts available to South Carolinians, yes.
Right, okay, thank you. Is that not one of the reasons why you are in this circumstance?
I think if the VC summer 2 and 3 were online, there would be approximately 2,000 megawatts on the system that's not there. I'm being a little bit cautious because we didn't project this need at that point in time.
Okay, so that's another,
yes,
it's a
ma'am.
third factor then.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the background. No further questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, anything further? Ms. Brazil, any redirect?
No, Chair Balzer, that concludes Santee Cooper's case.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you for your testimony this morning. Appreciate you being here. You may stand down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Office of Regulatory Staff?
Madam Chair, ORS calls James Finley Salter.
Madam Clerk.
Mr. Salter, if you'll raise your right hand, I'm going to swear you in. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Salter.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. By whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff as a program manager in the Utility Rates and Services Division.
And did you prepare or cause to be prepared under your direction 14 pages of direct testimony pre-filed in this proceeding on July 20th, 2023?
Yes, I did.
Did your direct testimony contain information that was designated as confidential by Santee Cooper?
Yes.
And as a result, did you cause to be filed a redacted version of your direct testimony as well as a confidential version?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or corrections to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No.
If I asked you the same questions today as those posed in your direct testimony, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Am I correct that no exhibits accompanied your pre-filed direct testimony?
Yes, that is correct.
Madam Chair, ORS would move that the redacted pre-filed direct testimony of James Finley Salter be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand, and that the confidential version remain under seal.
Mr. Salter's redacted pre-filed direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand, and his confidential version will be a part of the record but will remain under seal.
Thank you. Mr. Salter, am I correct that you did not file any surrebuttal testimony?
That is correct.
Mr. Salter, what was the purpose of your direct testimony in this proceeding?
The purpose of my direct testimony is to provide ORS findings following the review and examination of Santee Cooper's petition for approval of the acquisition of a major utility facility pursuant South Carolina Code annotated section 5833-185. By reviewing Santee Cooper's petition for compliance with the requirements of the statute, my direct testimony represents the public interest.
By what criteria did ORS evaluate the proposed acquisition as described in the petition filed by Santee Cooper?
ORS evaluated Santee Cooper's petition for approval of the acquisition of the Cherokee facility to determine compliance with the statutory provisions of South Carolina Code Section 5833-185 as promulgated by Act 90. This statute requires in part that Santee Cooper provide that the proposed transaction constitutes a more cost-effective means for serving direct serve and wholesale customers than other feasibly available long-term power supply alternatives, and provides less ratepayer risk while maintaining safe and reliable electric service than other feasibly available long-term power supply alternatives. ORS's evaluation included information from Santee Cooper related to its evaluation of long-term power supply alternatives, analysis of the cost-effectiveness of the Cherokee acquisition, risk management, operations, and other supporting documentation. ORS's review verified the consistency of information between direct testimonies of Santee Cooper's witnesses and internal Santee Cooper documents and work papers. ORS also verified consistency of information between Santee Cooper's internal work papers and the reasonableness of certain assumptions therein. ORS determined that the assumptions and analysis performed by Santee Cooper were reasonable and performed in compliance with South Carolina Code. Further, based on ORS's review of Santee Cooper's short-term capacity need and Santee Cooper's generation expansion plan, it does not appear that any single resource will meet the needs of Santee Cooper and Central combined system in the midterm. Based on the identified near-term capacity need, ORS does not object to the petition.
Based on the review performed by ORS, what recommendations did you put forward in your pre-filed direct testimony?
Based on my review, ORS recommends that Santee Cooper provide updates to the Commission when the transaction closes, when the Cherokee facility begins supplying power to the system, and any other milestones it deems relevant. Number 2, inform the Commission and ORS as to changes to the Cherokee facility purchase price. Number 3, upon execution, provide executed copies of the purchase and sale agreement and completed schedules to the Commission and ORS. And number 4, inform the Commission upon joint bond review committee approval, rejection, or modification of the proposed transfer of real property pursuant South Carolina Code annotated 5831-240B.
Mr. Salter, are you aware that a stipulation was entered into between ORS, Santee Cooper, and Central in this docket?
Yes, I am.
And does ORS support the stipulation?
Yes, the ORS supports the stipulation.
And does the stipulation represent and serve the public interest?
Yes, the stipulation is in the public interest because it meets the statutory requirements and resolves all issues amongst the parties in the docket.
Thank you, Mr. Salter. Madam Chair, Mr. Salter is available for questions.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Salter.
Good morning.
Are you familiar with the terms of the stipulation?
Yes, ma'am.
You made some recommendations toward the end of your testimony or testimony summary that you'd made in your pre-file testimony, and you indicated that those recommendations are incorporated in the stipulation.
That's correct. Those recommendations have been incorporated.
And I believe those are on page 6 and are paragraphs 8, 9, 10, and 11. Does that sound correct to you? I'm looking at the stipulation.
That is correct. They are also on page 13 of 14 of my direct testimony.
Okay. And Santee Cooper's agreed to do those things, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, questions for this witness? Commissioner Carolee Williams.
Good morning, Mr. Salter.
Good morning.
I'd just like to give you a chance to talk more about the public interest and how you, more specifically, how you deem that this agreement would be in the public interest.
Yes, be glad to. Santee Cooper's identified a capacity need in the near term to support their winter peak. That capacity need was driven by reserve margin analysis in addition to economic development that their system is experiencing based on testimony given by the company witnesses. This facility is an existing facility in the state. It's an operating facility. So by definition, it's lower risk than a facility that a company may go out and actually build from the ground up or greenfield construction. Additionally, Santee Cooper has identified that their capacity is needed in the near term and that this facility was offered for sale. We asked Santee Cooper in discovery if a power purchase agreement would be available in the future, similar to how it has been in the last year or two. And the answer was that because the facility was for sale, this energy would not be available for purchase in the near term. So from a reliability perspective, this facility is needed. Additionally, Santee Cooper, in accordance with the statute, has performed a cost effectiveness evaluation of the facility, and we found that their assumptions within that evaluation to be reasonable.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, Commissioner Caston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. Salter.
Morning.
Just one question. From your review, it sounds like you dove reasonably deep. Is that true in your review?
Yes, sir. I believe I performed a comprehensive review of the petition.
You worded that better than I did. Thank you. From that review, do you believe that Santee Cooper performs adequate or good planning, and going forward they will be performing good planning?
Santee Cooper has submitted their 2023 integrated review plan. So the ORS will be reviewing that integrated review plan. They have been performing integrated review plans before then. They have just not been coming before the Public Service Commission. So Santee Cooper does perform planning under the IRP and that statute. Additionally, Santee Cooper and Central perform joint planning together under the auspices of the coordination agreement. That planning is generally termed the Generation Expansion Plan between those two companies. So that would incorporate load forecasts from both the companies. So I do believe that adequate planning is being performed. In terms of the capacity need in the near term for this winter, I would hope that the companies would have better foresight as to that capacity need. But I think that Witness Watson identified it when he talked about, that there is additional economic development occurring in the state. And I also wanted to identify that the reserve margin study that is partly driving the need for additional capacity moves Santee Cooper from a 12% to a 17% reserve margin, which is not an insignificant increase.
Thank you. And in essence, what I think I just heard was that during your evaluation, you saw nothing that concerned you relative to lack of planning or knowledge or anything.
I'd agree with that.
Good. Thank you. No more questions, Madam Chair.
Commissioners, further questions? Hearing none. Mr. Torrey, any redirect?
No redirect, thank you.
Mr. Salter, thank you for your testimony this morning. You may stand down.
Thank you.
Mr. Torrey, anything further?
That concludes the DORS case.
Before we conclude, we have a request for a late file exhibit. Can you give me a time frame on when we might expect something?
Chair Belzer, we would request 10 days if that is okay.
Okay, 10 days from today. Thank you very much. And y'all are clear. I can't recite what is supposed to be in that, but y'all are clear on what it is. Okay. And of course, you'll share that. You'll share that with the other parties when that's filed. Okay,
yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Parties, anything further before or to come before the commission?
Nothing further here.
Okay.
Chairman Belzer.
Thank you all for your participation and your presentations this morning, and we'll look for that late filed exhibit, and you'll have a decision shortly after that. Thank you. We are adjourned.